Hello, Internet. Thank you very much for joining me once again to talk all things vertical drama with a vertical drama star, who is, as you may know, the very wonderful Ben Whalen. So I'm going to ask Ben to imagine that he's never met any of you before and give you a little brief intro as to who he is.
A brief intro about who I am. Okay. Hey, I'm Ben Whalen. I am an actor. I live here in Los Angeles, but I'm from New York originally, trying to bounce back and forth from the coast a bit. I'm really excited to be here with you, Jen, and open up some questions, do a deep dive on the intricacies of the vertical space.
Okay, so did you grow up in New York? Are you a city boy?
I did. So I did not grow up in Manhattan. I grew up in Long Island, which basically, like, if you're from Brooklyn and maybe certain parts of Manhattan, they go, you're not actually, like, they don't consider Long Island people New Yorkers, which is a little rude. I'm like, look at the map. It's on the thing. But so I grew up in the suburbs, about 40 minutes outside of Manhattan, a little closer to Queens and Brooklyn and all that.
Okay. So do you remember, as a kid, the first job that you wanted to do when you were growing up?
The first, I was sure that I was going to be a football, baseball, and basketball player professionally. I was gonna, I remembered seeing like something when I was like cleaning out an old room. I was like, I'm gonna play for the Minnesota Vikings. I'm from New York, but I think I liked Randy Moss, the footballer, the different type of footballer. But I was gonna play for the Minnesota Vikings, the Knicks, and the Mets. That was the plan.
And did nature kind of favour you in one of them? Was there a sort of skills in one where you thought this might be the one?
I probably had like early, I didn't start playing football until like middle school. I'm sorry, I don't mean soccer. I mean like American football. Yeah. I've just been watching a lot of Ted Lasso lately, so I just keep like, Um, so I don't know. I was like pretty good at football. I don't think no matter what school I went to or training I had, like was really destined for the pros. But when you're young and dreaming big, that was the goal.
I have to go on a deep dive now because you did mention Ted Lasso. What's your favourite character? Who's your favourite character?
That's so tough because they're all great. The ensemble itself. Leslie cracks me up. That guy's a gem. And I was just doing a vertical in New York and hanging out with one of the actors on that, and we were talking about Ted Lasso, and she was like, "Where did they find this guy?" I'm like, I didn't do a deep dive on like his past, but I was like, I know that he's probably done some BBC shows, like a ton of like theater and like stuff like that, but he's a gem. Sam Obisanya is so charming and like adorable and just like a sweet guy. I love Jamie Tartt's accent. Like I literally, like a few times a day, I'll just be like, I'm an ugly boy with bad hair, or like we're surrounded by poop hair. So I don't know.
That's pretty good.
Ted obviously,
Yeah.
Ted's great. Coach Beard's great. Everyone's, it's just a great cast. I'm glad they're coming back for a fourth season, supposedly.
Yeah, no, because that's why I have to sometimes go on these things. But now we will come back. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're enjoying sports. When does acting enter your life? How does that come about?
Kind of not so much later. I like didn't really do theater or musicals growing up. I remember in like third grade or something like that. They were doing Grease, and I auditioned. They're like, "All right, sing a song." I was like, "I gotta sing." I'm like, "I'm not a singer. I'm an actor. I'm trying to be an actor." Like, what do you? So like for the first part of my life, I always like thought theater meant musicals. I wasn't like super familiar with straight plays. I was familiar with Shakespeare, not like going to see it a ton, but I thought like those were the routes you go for in terms of like theater. And then I saw One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Gary Sinise when I was probably like 11 or 12, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, I would do that. I don't have a great voice. I can dance a little bit, but like I just never saw myself doing musicals. So I was like, that seems a lot cooler. I always like really loved films, and was intrigued by actors, a lot of comedic actors too. Like growing up, I feel like I got very lucky where I had like Jim Carrey, Mike Myers, then a little later like Will Ferrell. It was just like the most quotable, fun movies. So I was always like aware of films, but nobody I knew was an actor or a director or involved in that kind of, in the industry at all. So it wasn't until college I went and I did some stand-up comedy, so I was always interested in that as well. And one of my good friends, excuse me, saw me, came and supported whenever. And then he had written a script for like a student film, and he came up to me and was like, "Hey man, I wrote this script. Like, you did stand-up. You're kind of the closest thing I know to an actor. Like, do you want to be in this?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. That sounds cool. Like, let's do it." And pretty much like from the first like night on set, I was just like, "Oh, this is what I want to do. Like, this is it." Like the feeling I got from being on set, and I still get it now. Like, it's just like that's my happy place. Like that, I like. It feels like I fit there. Like, yeah, like that's where I'm kind of supposed to be. And even just all the relationships you have with all the various departments and all the different people on set, I love it. So I was kind of like, all right, how do we figure out how to do this?
So just going back to the comedy films, which were the ones that you could quote vast amounts of?
A bunch. One of the ones in my family, like would watch together was My Cousin Vinny with Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei. So like, yeah.
I love
So
Marissa
imagine you have a
Tomei.
little dough
she's
idea. You
yeah.
want to drink water, so you go down to the stream, and then bam, a fucking bullet. Excuse my language. But yeah, he was like, "You were serious about that?" All that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that was a big one. All the Austin Powers. Um, Will Ferrell is just a very quotable person. Trying to think other besides those like kind of like very well known ones. So as I got a little bit older, one of my favorite it's like not a traditional comedy, but I view it as one of the best buddy comedy films of all time. It's called Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Have you seen this? Have you heard about
I know
this?
the movie. Yeah, I saw it in my
Yeah,
youth. I
so
can't remember much.
yeah, no, it's a wild, like weird, wacky movie, but Benicio del Toro in that is like one of the funniest humans. Like it's one of the funniest performances. And it's kind of it came out like 99 or 98 or something like that. So it's been around for a while, but I don't think it gets the credit it deserves as like one of the best comedies of all time. Johnny
I
Depp's
was used
great.
to sell a lot of the books actually, because I used to work in bookshops, and yeah, we sold a lot of the book. So that
Yeah.
was one you always just sold and sold and sold. So yeah, it's a very good present for like a young guy. Like, don't know what to buy him. Buy him this. He'll be happy.
Yeah.
So,
Eh,
yeah.
I guess because of the movie, that was like the most popular Hunter S. Thompson book.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it kind of fed into each other. So yeah, it did really well.
How long did
Okay.
you? Oh, I was gonna.
Oh no, go for it.
How long did you work in a bookstore?
18 years.
Okay, same
Because
one or
I
same?
finished university. Didn't really know what to do. My mum was like, "Get out the house, get a job." I thought, oh, I could work in a bookshop. I think I'd seen what's it called? The Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks one. You've
You've
got
got mail.
mail. So I had the bookshop.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
would be magical. Yeah, and then I met my husband there. Worked
I
there
was
18
gonna.
years.
I was gonna ask. I'm like, I feel like a bookstore is a great like meet cute place.
It was a great meet cute. Partly because you meet a lot of similar people in a bookstore, because you obviously understand that books are life and that you'll have a large book collection and that all your money will go on books. You generally have a fairly similar worldview. So yeah, it's quite a good setup for meeting.
Yeah,
He
and
was my manager as well. He was my manager.
ooh,
It's all very, yes. So yeah, there you go.
scandalous.
It's background to my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did mean that, yes, that's probably where part of the love of stories comes from. But then what happens in bookstores is it all changes around as the world changes, and it's not really such a good job. But they're very clever because they give you more discounts on books. So they're like, we can do all these horrible things to your working conditions, but have more money off books. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay then. So it
Then you
took me a
can go
long
and
time to
escape
leave.
from.
Exactly, because you're like, but the books, I can't
Yeah.
leave the books. So
I was gonna say too, the nice thing about working in a bookstore is like all the people you meet, like can read and do.
I
That
met people's mothers. I met Rachel Weisz's mother, who came in and told me in great detail. I used to work in the Cambridge one. Told me in great detail about how she's very worried about Rachel in Hollywood. And then I also met Orlando Bloom's mother, who I did verify was his mother, because it was when he just, I think he must have been in. He had Lord of the Rings and Pirates of the Caribbean came out about the same time, and there was, when they do these unauthorized biographies or someone's just written it, and she
uh,
basically book and went through it with me and told me everything that was inaccurate. I'm not quite sure what she
bullshit,
expected me to
bullshit,
do.
bullshit.
Well, that's not fantastic. I didn't write this. I just put it on the shelf. But yeah,
Yeah.
she was entertaining. So yes, I tend to meet people's mothers. That's my gift. So yeah, sorry, I've made this about me. This is about you. So we're not getting distracted.
I know, but
So acting. In the story of you, you've got on a set. You've realised you love it. What's the move then into what was the first paid acting job you had?
Yeah, so I did that, and then I ended up working with the same guy. He directed a few more like episodes of this thing, and we had this thing. I'm like, dude, you're like my Scorsese. I'll be your De Niro. Like, let's go. He's now an Emmy award-winning producer. His name's Pat Altima, and I keep being like, dude, get back to directing. Like, I know you're killing it, but like, come on, let's make something great. So I just want this on the internet that Pat Altima needs to start directing again. Yeah. So once I caught the bug, so to speak, I just kind of started looking into. I went to school at University of Maryland, like just outside of DC. So I sort of started looking into how to get acting gigs in that area, and I ended up like getting some headshots and then getting an agent in that DC area where there's not like a ton of work going on. Like that show House of Cards, I think helped for a little while, but it's not necessarily like a major hub. So I remember my first paid gig very very well. It was a CarMax commercial, which I don't know if you're familiar. It's basically like a chain of like used car, but like they're supposedly like reliable. They do like a good check on them or whatever. It's a pretty well known brand. Like they have commercials all the time. So it was a commercial for that, and I just it was background. But to me, I was like, I'm going to a legit like film shoot, commercial shoot. I'm going to be on set. I'm going to be an actor. So I remember literally like on the drive there. I don't know if you remember that Lupe Fiasco song, Superstar. I'm literally just playing it on repeat, driving to go be like a background extra, and I'm just like, yep, I made it, baby. Like, let's go. I always knew this was going to happen. And it was really fun. Like, it was just like a fun experience. I was like, okay, this is what a professional set is. Like, it's just kind of a bigger version of our silly student film. So, yeah, that's kind of how it's always been, where it's, kind of no matter how big the set or small and intimate, it's kind of the same thing in a way,
So, have you always been in the film TV sphere? Have you dabbled with theatre?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of theater. I wish I did a lot more. So I went after college. I actually dropped out a little early. I was like, you know what am I doing with a communications degree? This isn't. I don't think this is the path for me. So I went to Stella Adler in New York and studied there. It's like a theater conservatory. So I did. I got my MFA equivalent from there, and did a bunch of plays with the school like during my time there, and then afterwards a couple of plays with I think it was called the Harold Clurman Lab series or whatever. So I did it. Yeah, I've done like a few professional plays, but I really miss it. It's just a different experience. I will say sometimes with bringing it back to verticals, sometimes we get these like 12 or 15 page scenes, and kind of just shoot it in one take. I mean, we might do multiple takes for coverage and whatever, but we at least do we run the full thing. And so for those, 15 pages, 15 minutes or whatever, it reminds me a little bit of doing theater where you're just kind of living in it and reacting and, there's just a whole lot less rehearsal.
Yeah. Yeah, and also presumably as well, you don't have that theatre thing. People have talked about theatre if you at least know where you are in the story and where your character's going, whereas presumably...
I mean, I think that's an important thing. I try to help friends of mine or people that are kind of just start acting out, and it's not like I came up with this, but important thing to remember is the moment before, when you start a scene or whatever. It's what just happened? What are you coming in with? And I think theater does that automatically because you just lived the moment before,
So of your kind of pre-vertical career, what would you say is the project you're most proud of? What's the one that you look back on and you're like, that's the one that means the most?
I'll say 3 because there's 3 different reasons. One of them, it was pretty early on. I think I'd been in LA for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, but just auditioning. And back then it was you actually go to an audition. So driving around LA and doing that thing, and I booked a couple things here and there, all non-union stuff. And then one time I went in for an audition, and I'll save this for maybe another thing, but it's the audition story is pretty funny. But I remember walking and I got a notification. It's hey, we'd like to book you for this role. And I was like, wait a second, is this the one that's shooting in Lithuania? And it was. And so I ended up shooting this horror film called, initially it was, working title was Parlor. Now it's called Anarchy Parlor. But it's this horror film. It's really it's very gory. It's intense. But I got to shoot in Lithuania, be one of the main cast. I was there for about 5 weeks, and this was early on, so I was oh my god, it's all happening. I made it, and it really was it was just still to this day one of the best experiences. Just I love the directors. I've done 6 more features with them. Our whole cast, because we were staying at the same hotel and all that stuff, we got super close, still in touch. Everybody, few people have moved away from entertainment, but some got more into producing or writing and directing. So that was a very important, significant film and experience for me. One of the other cool ones was just, it seemed it got kind of the most exposure was, do you know the singer Janae Aiko? She's an R&B pop
Let's
singer.
just nod. Yes,
Sure.
I know the singer.
No, she's she's very popular. I think amongst LA. She's an LA native, and she's got a pretty loyal fan group. So anyway, she decided to do a short film, a concept album film. When it was sort of Beyonce did it and Frank Ocean did it. So she did one of those. And I got to play the romantic interest in that, and it was just a really cool experience, and something that as an actor, one of the things that you hear is if you say, hey, what do you do? And you say, hey, I'm an actor. They go, oh, well, what have you been in? What would I have seen? And a lot of times do you watch vertical soap operas? Then I could point you in the right direction or whatever. But that was the one where I'm I've been in this, and people are oh shit, I've seen that. Sorry, again, language.
No, but that's good. Yeah, that's the one that people go, oh, right, okay, I get it now. Yes.
Yeah, just, I guess it got, got reached a lot of people. And then the last one I'll say is, I think I shot it in February of last year. So it was I did that and then started, vertical stuff started picking up a lot. And then I was still able to do, some other projects outside of the vertical space last year, a couple features, a student film, couple TV shows. But there's one that's called Wild West Chronicles, and I think it's a lot of actors that work in the vertical space have been on this because it's a non-union show that is looking for newer talent and stuff like that. But I did an episode that it was just a great script. It's it was 24 minutes or whatever, a half-hour series. It just had this really nice arc. I started out kind of dickhead, you know, like a mean seeming person. And then by the end, it's like he character redeems himself. So it was just like I was really proud of my work on that one. It was a great script, and sometimes like doing Vertical so much, I'm like, wait, am I even like a good actor anymore? I don't like. That's not really always required from these in a way, you know. So I'm like, am I maybe like developing bad habits or whatever? And so it was just nice to be like, all right, cool. Like I still got it, you know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that is. I hadn't thought about that yet, but I guess that is the challenge for you actually when you're dealing with some of the scripts and the way that you presumably are directed and required. It is like, yeah, it's not quite acting in other styles, is it? So my question is, presumably you were in LA when COVID hit. Can you kind of talk briefly, if that's all right, just about what it did to the industry and kind of the changes that brought about?
Sure. So funny enough, I moved out here in 2011. I, tried my best to be a professional actor and I booked some stuff here and there, but always had side gigs like bartending, or I drove for a private car service. And so after like 5 or 6 years, I was getting kind of worn out. So friends of mine had started a company in the cannabis industry. So I started working with them just part-time, and then they're like, hey, do you want to like do this full-time and have a salary and some security and eventually like a company car and all these like perks? And at first I was like, yeah, but I'm still an actor, so I want to keep doing that. And they're like, yeah, we get it, we understand. And then I booked a feature and had to be gone from work for 2 weeks, and they were like, you can't really be an actor anymore if you want to, keep working with us. So I was actually doing that during COVID. I did that for about like from 2015, 16 to COVID, and I was our event coordinator. So I was used to traveling and meeting all these people. So it was fun. And then COVID happened and the event stopped. So they tried to make me a sales manager. And like one day I was just sitting there. I was like, how the hell did I become a sales manager? Like I made so many choices in life to not like be a sales manager and work in an office. Like how did I end up back here? So that's when I ended up parting ways with the company and didn't get back into acting until like 2021, I guess. I like end of 2020, because that's when I left. And I remember I think it was in like Halloween of 2020, around when I parted ways, and I went on one of the casting sites and just started submitting myself for some. I was like, all right, I'm going to get back into acting. And literally, just one of the first projects I submitted for was an LG commercial that involved soccer, football players. And so I got to I ended up getting cast and then shooting at what's called Bank of California Stadium, like the professional soccer stadium out here for the LA Football Club. And so I was just like right away, I was like, oh, cool. Like, I always feel like when you have beginner's luck, it's a little bit of the universe being like, yeah, keep going. Like, it might suck again for 3 months, but you got one little nugget that you can hang on to and be like, all right, well, that worked. So I can't really speak to how it was like immediately before and during COVID. I do feel like it's still not fully recovered. I have friends that have been here a long time, like work on bigger shows and have pretty successful acting careers, and they say it's just been slow for them, and like some of them are lucky that they did commercials years ago that are still providing a source of income for them. But that's why I'm just like, wow, we're so lucky to have these verticals going on. It's keeping a very large percentage of the industry afloat, and and giving us a creative ish outlet and a way to live and pay our bills. Not even just on the acting side, on the crew side, there's a bunch of people that are just out of these great film schools and came into an industry that like there's just not a lot going on. I keep hearing that story and over from producers and DPs and directors and stuff.
I was talking to a producer the other day, and she made the really good point as well, that it's not even just that, it extends further. It means like, people who run locations are making money because of verticals. You know, people who hire film
Absolutely.
gear are making money. So there's that kind of ripple effect out. So it's almost more than just the immediate industry, all those surrounding things as well. So, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. Caterers or, like local food establishments getting calls for, orders for 50 plus people. It's the
yeah, the
same thing
coffee
like
bills,
in,
I'm sure, go up. Coffee for
what's
sale.
that?
The coffee as well. The coffee sales go up when a vertical descends. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so what was your first vertical? And had you heard of the medium before, or was it like you turned up and you're like, oh, this is different?
Um, I, I hadn't like heard of it. I just saw it on Actors Access. Is like one of the main like casting sites. It kind of kept popping up, and I was like vertical short form. I don't know this. It just because it was a phrase I never heard. It was almost like when I would see web series, I'd be like, how many of these are gonna like be quality? I'd focus more on like feature films or episodic or whatever. So they kept popping up, and eventually I just kind of like put my submitted for one, and like no audition, nothing. It was just like a day player, a couple lines, and so I just got the email like, "Hey, we'd like to book you on this day." And I was like, "All right, cool." Like, there's not, I didn't have to do much, so let me just show up on set. Again, I love being on set. Let's go do it. And I'll be honest, it was like, it was weird. I was like, this is very different. Like something's off in a way, And this is end of 2023, like November or October of 2023. I don't remember what it was called, but I do think it was one that like ended up being super successful, which was very shocking to me. But I guess coming from, I did student films and stuff like that. I wasn't, like, oh, I've been only on big movie sets and stuff like that. It was just the vibe. Everything was like a little weird. Like I just remembered that there was the woman playing the lead actress, very pretty girl with blonde hair. We talked a little bit, and then they're like, all right, time to get ready. And they put like a blonde wig that looked worse on top of her natural blonde hair. And I was just like, that's weird. Like, why are they doing that? And like the wardrobes were wild, and it seemed like they spent more money on the fancy car than like anything else. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, the dialogue was tough, but this was the early days, right, of verticals, and since then it's come like a really long way. And maybe I was just went in with like the wrong attitude or a bad attitude, or just was like looking for something. So I didn't do another one until like January of the next year. I was like, okay, that was a little better. But I remember one of my first scenes, I had like a slightly bigger role. Like I was playing like a supportive older brother type role. Probably one of the richest men in the world type of thing. But I'm filming like my first scene, and they got the other actors coverage first, and they flipped around. They're like, all right, we're gonna get yours. I'm like, cool. We're like, I'm ready. Let's do it. And on the first take, like midway through it, a bug like flew in my ear, and so like as I'm talking, I went, ah, and I just kind of kept talking, and they're like, all right, cool, good, we got it. I'm like, oh, did you not see like a bug flew in my ear? And I like freaked out. And they're like, no, it's fine. We got the scene. I'm like, okay. So I kind of got used to being like, all right, if you're getting what you need, I'm not gonna overthink it on my end.
So did you find then with sort of, is there a certain role that you found you sort of got quite a lot in verticals? Is it like, if we need this, we're calling Ben?
Yeah, I mean, early on it was like, I think I've seen like a few guys who are now doing more like leading parts and stuff. Is like the assistant is a good assistant, right hand man,
Yeah.
security, whatever, like guy who gets stuff done for the male lead. I did like three of those, kind of like early on, like back to back, and I was like, okay, cool. This is easy enough. It's a layup. It was kind of nice because you get a lot of days and you don't have a ton of like scenes and work. So sometimes you have shorter days. So it's not a bad gig, and I don't mind not being the lead. And so sometimes the supporting roles are a little more interesting and dynamic. But I got a little bored of like being like, yes, boss, I got the file you asked for. You know what I mean? Like it just gets repetitive. So then I got a decent amount of like antagonists type of like crappy ex-boyfriend, crappy ex-husband, the standard like,
Yeah. Yeah.
start the movie with cheating with her best friend or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and so then that got a little bit old. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna be like yelling at this poor woman again, like. Um, but I have found that like some of the antagonist roles, especially in like the mafia ones, and then like a couple other one that was like sort of a courtroom drama, sort of. Those were more fun because it was just like a little variation on the thing. And I like to play like like dynamic characters, not to have them be three dimensional and have some layers and have it's a little part of the vertical tropes are a little bit like they're like I've heard this note a lot. It's like Disney villain, like just like we want like this one like very prototypical evil person. And again, ultimately, like if that's what people want and that's what the director needs and the producers need, like cool. But I'm more interested in like complex characters and taking somebody who's like unlikable or who's doing bad deeds and make it a little bit interesting, give them a little bit of I don't know, a full personality or some kind of dynamic elements to them.
So, talking first of all about the assistant roles, obviously, I think assistants are vastly underestimated in Vertland because you bankrupt things, you get things done. All you seem to have is a folder or an iPad, and it make it all happen.
Uh-huh.
Um, how do you kind of try and play them a bit differently? Because I was saying it would be quite easy for them to slightly merge. But I mean, you've like, for instance, I really liked you in Billionaire Alpha Won't Let Me Go. There's just some little bits you put in. There was just something where you did that, where you were watching, and it's just, is that kind of improvised or, yeah, how do you try and differentiate them?
Yeah, I mean that specific scene was improvised. It was actually one of the other actors was like kind of like did something like that. Like I think I jokingly like did that, and it was like, oh, we should actually just do this in the scene. And I think because the audience, but I don't know, but I feel like the audience are watching a lot of these, and so I try to just bring in some like pop culture references and stuff, like classic stuff, where it's like if you were to do it in like a movie or a show, it's like, oh, you're ripping off that, but I feel like it's just fun and fine to like
Yeah.
bring that into the vertical space. Um, Yeah, I mean, it sort of depends on like if the script gives you some clues about who this person is, and sometimes it's even more in like the breakdown that you get before you even get the role, that has more information in the script. That something like, for example, when I played Maverick with the mustache,
Excellent.
like in the description, it was like former military, police, head of security, this, that, whatever. That wasn't really mentioned in the script, but I was like, okay, cool, that's something to go off of. And so I feel like that person's, physicality and point of view of things is going to be different from someone who, grew up with the guy and has been their best friend, is just kind of like their right hand man, loyal assistant type of dude. So yeah, I think the script will hopefully give you a little bit of insight into how to play it differently. It can get tough, right? Because I feel like there are some times where like I'm sort of playing the same role over and over. But you can dress it up different, try to find some subtle differences, and it's funny you say too, like that the assistant or like right hand man and right hand woman role, right? So like that's like a typical thing too. Is they're sort of undervalued in a way because it's like oftentimes like there's a billionaire who's the richest man in the world who runs like this international conglomerate and they never are doing any work. They're constantly like getting caught up in these very trivial matters with this girl they just met. So it's like obviously I guess the assistant's holding it down for them.
So I have to ask, okay, this is like a checklist of what you've done as assistant. Have you bankrupted someone? Have you bankrupted anyone?
I don't I don't think so.
Cancelled a meeting or moved a meeting. That's quite common, the
I've
shareholder
probably moved
meeting.
some scheduling around for sure, or set like the meeting's on.
Yeah.
They're gonna meet shit.
Okay.
Um,
Dealt with a drunk boss. That's quite regular.
So I think the one I had the most fun doing was Maverick, just because I got to
Yeah.
make it feel like a little bit more of a character. And in that one, the female lead dealt with the drunk boss, and that was the whole thing. It's like, what happened while you were drunk? And in that one, I got to like kick some ass too. Have like a decent fighting scene, which I really enjoy, like the stunt stuff and fight
Yeah.
choreography. Just action. It's a little more fun.
So you've also done, obviously, you said talking about the antagonists, and you've done werewolf and mafia. When you do werewolf stuff, do you get like a primer on welcome to werewolves and verticals? This is what all the language means. Because it's a
Um,
bit different from if you've just, say, watched Teen Wolf.
right. No, I mean, short answer, no. There's that. It's just kind of like, read the script, bring in what you can.
The
I'll be honest, I like the werewolf ones aren't really for me. Like not that people don't. I know people like really enjoy them. I mean, I don't. I personally don't watch like a ton of verticals. I don't. I haven't
Fine,
seen
don't
most of
worry.
this.
Don't worry.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen most of the stuff I've been in. The one or two that I have is because like the producers or director like set up a little bit of like a screening for us where we could like watch it in full. We actually took a TV and like flipped it vertical, and
Yeah.
so I just thought it was kind of funny. Um, so I don't know, I don't know how they always turn out, but for me, just like the language, like you were saying, it's a little tough for. It's like a little bit of a bridge too far for me. But I like when I'm if I get booked directly, I'm like, all right, let's go. Like I'll
Yeah.
show up. Let's do this thing. But when I'm auditioning for them, like I'm like alone in my living room, and I'm like Alpha Jason, the blah blah blah, and I just like it gives me like a weird feeling. I don't know.
Does the mafia
Not
stuff
to be
flow more
judgmental.
easily then?
I sorry, say it again.
Does the mafia flow more easily then? Because I'm guessing, like culturally, obviously, there's been so much more TV and film, hasn't there, over the years?
Yeah, yeah, the mafia stuff I love, to be honest. It's a lot of fun. Like the first one I did, I rewatched some Soprano. Like I thought, oh, let me just watch the pilot of Sopranos, just get in the mafia mood. Ended up watching the entire series in like a couple weeks because it was earlier this year where there were fires in California and LA specifically, and kind of just shut everything down. So there was like 2 weeks where there were no projects going on. Everything was like a little up in the air. So I just used that to watch like The Sopranos from start to finish again. So yeah, I've always loved like gangster films or mafia related stuff. There's just a ton of great ones. And I guess being from New York, I like doing the kind of like talking to you, all that kind of good stuff.
I have to ask as well. Okay, mafia versus werewolf. Werewolf crew, the mafia crew. Who's going to win?
Like in like a 100 versus 100 fight.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the werewolves have like superpowers in a way sometimes. I mean, sometimes it's just kind of mentioned that they're werewolves and they have very normal day jobs. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, the mafia comes pretty strapped up. So if they have the silver bullets, they might, they might take it. I think if
I
they
like
come,
this. I like this. We
you know
needed
what
to
I
even it
mean?
out because I'm doing a little survey, and yeah,
Yeah, if they come
obviously
strapped
people who
up
do
with
more
like a,
werewolves are like, oh, the werewolves. But yeah, you and Nick Ritacco were like, no, the mafia with silver bullets. They'd sort them out. So
yeah,
needed
yeah.
another one. Vote mafia. Excellent. Now, obviously, that's not all you've done. One of my favourite roles of yours is Chris Connor in My Big Bad Husband, and you're the lead, and it's brilliant. And
Thank
it's
you.
just such a gorgeous vertical. Um, it's so lovely. How was that getting to play romantic lead?
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and it was one of my favorite roles to play in favorite projects. It was great. I really like when I read the script. I felt like this reads much more like sort of a traditional, rom com. There's some vertical elements in it to get you into the story and all that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, right when I read the script, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a nice, sweet, heartwarming show or film. And then I found out Noemi was going to be playing the female lead, and we'd worked together just like once or twice. But I knew she was like very professional, like knew her stuff, very sweet. So I had a good feeling we were gonna, do a good job together. And then when we were actually doing it, I think our chemistry was really strong. So working with her was great, and I think helped bring all that out for both of us. Just having that. So yeah, it was truly like a pleasure. Vincent Wang was the producer on that. I got that role kind of randomly. Like he had reached out on Instagram, and it was in my hidden messages. So like I almost didn't see it. He was just like, "Hey, are you available these dates?" And initially I wasn't, because I was filming a mafia one that actually also just came out, which we can talk about it if you want. But that was on hold because of the fires, so it got delayed like a few weeks. And so I just barely was able to get that one in between, which is, you get lucky sometimes where you can do multiple projects like close together, and then sometimes there's like 1 or 2 days that conflicts and you have to, give up one of them, which is, frustrating because sometimes you're waiting a couple weeks for the next one and you're like, oh, I almost did two. But yeah, to answer your question, that was one of my favorite experiences in the vertical space. And honestly, just as an actor, it was the type of role I've always wanted to play. Just like a very a sweet guy who really cares about a woman. I try to add some dimension to that. And I think the script and the story adds some, conflict to that. But it felt very straightforward and natural. Like I didn't have to, bend over backwards to try to understand this character,
Because I'm talking about wigs. Obviously, Naomi gets a fantastic wig because she's playing like these kind of twin characters, and then she does this insanely, brilliantly mad accent as well. So I feel like the wig possibly needed its own, Twitter account or something, because that wig is something. And then there's also, she goes through all these mad excuses to get out of spending time with your character, including this rather convincing scar. That looked quite good, that sticker. Were you impressed with the...
It did, yeah. Yeah, I was impressed. We did like a couple of takes of me like pulling it off, like the fake sticker thing, but it felt like, it looked like how a scab would come up. You know what I mean? Like, there was no scar under it, but it was, it even like felt kind of like scar-like. So shout out to production department, who, oftentimes are doing, a lot with a little in terms of trying to get all these props together and, make it convincing.
And how is that as well? Because you're kind of the straight man to the kind of the characters, and particularly Naomi, everything going on around you. Would you like, I feel that given you used to do stand-up comedy, I feel like we need to get you doing more out-and-out comedy. Is that something you'd like to do?
I would. I love it. That's like one of the few notes I usually get, just because at this point I've done like 30 or so of verticals, so I understand the assignment kind of thing. Like I know what direct, and I've worked with directors multiple times too, so like I know what you specifically kind of want and need out of this. But the main note I'll get from time to time is like, it's too funny, like to bring it back like a little bit. Like I'm just like having too much fun with the antagonist role or something like that. They're like, you're not supposed to be that like fun. So yeah, I would love to do more like straight up comedy. And the straight man is important. Like it's a very important part of, setting up comedy. But yeah, I'd love to do some silly stuff. A couple ones I've done recently that aren't out yet. I do feel like I kind of went for it a little bit.
Excellent. I can't wait to see that. I always think they're better.
Yeah.
And I have to say as well, in I can't remember the name of it now. What's it called? Quick. My Big Bad Husband. You get your own assistant. I
do, Seth.
And he has a really good ending. He's a really useful assistant because he puts Do Not Disturb up and there's a little lovely wink to the camera. So good hire, I would say. Now that you're the boss.
I agree. Yeah, we didn't get to spend a ton of time together. Both as characters and actors. But yeah, no, Seth was great. And I kind of told him, like, he's a younger guy. I was like, dude, I started the same way. You got to like climb this like fictional corporate ladder. You start out as an assistant, you do that a few times, and then, So yeah, I think he's really talented, and I could see him doing well in this space.
And then obviously you've mentioned it a little bit. You've had one come out, Mafia one, which want to watch, but I can't make the app work on my Google phone, so I'm going to have to try and dig out an iPad. But it's the Mafia one with Kelly Tappan, who I think's amazing. Can you share any stories about that? Behind the scenes,
Sure.
what you love about it? Hype it up for the audience so they all run to Playlet to watch it.
Yeah, so that one we also shot in January. We filmed a couple days, and then like we were like very shooting on a location like very close to where the day that the fires got like crazy. We were like we stopped halfway through. We stopped at lunch and we're like, all right, everybody eat, and like we'll go home, and then we're gonna figure out like if we're even shooting tomorrow. So that was like a little weird, but I think we were all on the same page of like, hey, like we want to get this done. We all need to make money, but like let's put safety first kind of thing. So that shoot got postponed. So it was interesting, like starting, we did like 2 days and then coming back to it. But really good cast, like really, honestly, everybody I've worked with, 99.999% of people I've worked with have been like really, really cool, easy to work with, like just great people. So this was no different. And I felt like this was another one where, reading the script, I was like, okay, this is like there's some stuff to chew on as an actor in this. There's some scenes with like betrayal and subtext, and so I thought I think this is another one that's pushing the boundaries of what a vertical can be in a way. Kelly is great, is very funny. Some of the stuff that she filmed when I wasn't there, I didn't see, so I just watched a couple of the clips that have been promoted on Instagram, and I love what she's doing. Like just her like comedic face and expressions and mannerisms, I think like fit the role really well. I actually bumped into her, and her brother is a filmmaker as well. I bumped into her at like a filmmaker mixer here in LA for I guess more horizontals, whatever you want to call it, like features and stuff like that. So it was cool to bump into her, and she's like, "Have you heard it?" I'm like, "I haven't," and then all of a sudden it's like it's out, and it seems like people are digging it. So but that was a really great shoot, and I think a really great script in terms of verticals and having some twists and turns, and working with everybody was awesome.
So, are you seeing a difference in sort of some of the scripts coming through? I know some are kind of repeating it, but that's quite encouraging. That obviously you kind of slightly lifted up of like there was a bit more here for me to kind of work with. Are more coming through? Give us hope.
Yeah, honestly, I feel very lucky in the sense that out of once I started playing like bigger like major supporting or lead roles, like most of the ones that I've done, I felt like are somewhat of a, even if it's just a small inch or it's like a little bit of an evolution each time, something a little different. I've done a couple where I'm like, okay, this is like what I call like a straight up vertical, But I did one where we're playing attorneys, and I guess I'll just tease this one. It's like I'm defending a guy who's being accused of murdering a pharmaceutical CEO, and the character's name is Louis Mangione. So it's like a little bit of
That's subtle.
Well, verticals
They're so subtle, aren't they,
verticals? For their subtlety.
Yeah.
But I think that's actually something cool. Like I mentioned that to a friend, they're like, "That's hilarious." I mean, fucked up screwed up situation, but he's like, "It's almost like South Park." And because like verticals are written, shot, and edited so fast, I think there is an opportunity because like there will be a feature film about Luigi Mangione, right? But it's going to take 2 years. They probably haven't even cast it yet, or like the script's not done. But with verticals, the turnaround is so quick. You can really like capture like a pop culture moment and kind of take advantage of how quickly you can get that turned around.
Yeah, you're right, because it fits in, doesn't it? Because then you'd maybe get a Lifetime movie, wouldn't you? And
Right.
then in 2 or 3 years, you get like a really arty director and Timothy Chalamet and
Right.
the Oscar run. biopic.
Exactly.
But yeah, you're right. There's now a new space that like Verticals can get in before and do something before the Lifetime movie, and arguably be just as good as better. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's really that's such an exciting idea. What stories would you like to see in Verticals? Like, is there any that you're like, oh, I'd love to do that?
Well, like for me personally, like what would I want to?
Just you. Let's do
Um,
our pitch now to the internet. These are what Ben would like to do. People, please cast him.
yeah, I would love to play a boxer, or or somebody who does MMA, or, a fighter. I think that would be really cool and fun. I have like boxing training and love doing like stunts and fight choreography. So I feel like that would be a lot of fun. I'd love to have play an athlete or do some kind of sports related. And I know that both of those things are happening more and more. So I'm like excited. And I'm like hoping that's one of the next, kind of like boxes of genre I can check in a way. I'm like, yeah, cool. I
Yeah.
got to do that. I think all that stuff's really cool. People have mentioned like the idea of like, more sci-fi or period pieces. I'd love to do another Western. I think there could be something cool with a Western. It might be like a time travel type of something to get you in there. But I've noticed whenever like one platform or something does one of a certain genre or theme that's successful, there's going to be like 100 more coming right after that. So I think I would say to the producer, like, take a shot, like try something new. It might be like the next big thing. So yeah, I mean, I think it can have the same amount of genres that film and TV have. Obviously dealing with like some faster shoots and budget limitations to an extent. But they're spending pretty good money to get these things out. I would love if some are more like 9 or 10 days sometimes, but it's like if we had 12 days to do this, we might be able to create a better product for everybody. Yeah, I don't know. I just think like sort of the sky's the limit. Just whatever people can imagine. Maybe some like a glass onion like mystery thriller type of thing where you got to figure out who done it.
So I'm like, that would work perfectly because you can do the extreme characters, the drama, the cliffhangers, all of that. So
Yeah,
this one's cool.
more
I
like
think you make a really good detective. I
I
can
was just
see
gonna
you.
say like a buddy cop or like a serious like detective type one. Yeah, I would love to do that.
It does remind me a bit of book selling, actually, the way verticals work, because obviously you were pointing out that yeah, we have a sports movie that does well, so everyone makes a sports movie or a
Right.
racing movie, whatever, and it was
Hmm.
like that in book selling. So, like for instance, when Twilight came out, everyone discovered the vampire book that they had on their backlist or urgently commissioned one, and every
Yeah.
publisher had to have that. And then we had it. I think the hardest period was when John Green happened with Fault Among Our Stars, which is a brilliant book, but is a tragedy about teens dying of cancer. So
Yeah.
then every publisher bought out that book. And you'd have people coming to read, and you're like, all I can offer you are books that are like the most depressing thing you're going to read. And that was actually, they were really looking for comedy, and you're like, yeah, I've got nothing. I've just got book upon book, which is going to make you
Yeah.
cry your heart out. So yeah, it's interesting that for me, it is, I know that from book selling, that kind of slight lack of originality and just like, but it made money, so therefore we must do it as well. So
Yeah, I mean, it happens with films too. It's like people look at something that's successful and they go, "Okay, cool, let's do that. That's what people want." But I think
yeah,
sometimes people don't really know what they want until they see it. And so I think just offering something that's somewhat original and personal, or something that actually like means something to you, it's going to be easier for people to connect with.
okay. So I'm just going to ask you a few final, more silly, quick-fire questions because you've been an absolute
Sure.
superstar and explained so much. Um, okay, favorite mafia movie slash TV series? I think we might know what the answer is.
Well, TV series, you got to go Sopranos. And I think it might be the best show of all time. There's a lot of great shows, so I'm not gonna say definitively, but I think it probably is. And it's so funny, like it's gallows humor and
Yeah,
definitely inappropriate, and some things haven't aged so well, but
yeah.
I think that's the best show ever. Mafia movie. I mean, there's the obvious like Godfather 1, 2, Goodfellas, Casino, but I'm trying to think of one that's like a Bronx Tale is a great one. Just like a little, it's still super well known, but a little less. Trying to think if there's any more like obscure mafia movies that I like.
I'm going to ask about action as well, because you've mentioned that you like action stunts. So just action movies you rate. Is there any kind of action star or two that you're like, yeah, they're worth watching, they can do their stuff? Will you be going to see the new Mission Impossible? These are the things we need to know.
I probably will, but I saw the last Mission Impossible. I try to go to the movie theater like ideally once a week or at least like twice a month. And so usually like if I have a free day, I'm like, all right, what movie am I going to go see? And I'll just look if there's anything I actually like want to. And sometimes even if there's not something I'm super looking forward to, I'm like, you know what, let me try this one. So back when the last one came out, I was like, all right, Mission Impossible, let's go. And to be honest, I was like I know the stunt was cool, but it felt like I think they shot it during COVID, so like they're never in the same scene together. So it felt like a zoomed in movie. You know what I mean? Like, and Simon Pegg's whole character is just being a human GPS. He's like, make a left now. Oh, up ahead, 20 yards, you're gonna make a right. It's like, and I heard that they don't write a script for those films. They just kind of like do it on the fly, and it's like Hollywood or the world has so many talented writers who could do an amazing job of crafting a beautiful story for this like epic film and this amazing franchise that started off really well. And so I don't know. I'm not the biggest like big action, big budget movie fan. I was like super late to the game on John Wick, which was pretty awesome. You know what action like I keep kind of coming back to that like the fight scenes just because they're kind of gritty and like rough and sloppy almost. Ever seen Gangs of London?
Yes.
So like I think in the first episode at the end there's this like 10-minute fight scene, but like stuff like that to me is I'm just so impressed by it. I'm like, how did they like do that? Like how did they do that safely? Whereas I just saw Thunderbolts, which I actually thought was I'll even say very good with the asterisk of for a Marvel movie or for a superhero movie.
Yeah,
or like
unfortunately we are at that level now, aren't we? For a Marvel
blockbuster.
movie.
But
Yeah.
I love Florence Pugh. She's amazing. I think the whole cast did a great job. But some of the action sequences in that they're very good. And I know like Marvel has like the top of the top of the top. But there are times where it feels like a dance. And it's like you feel, for me, I'm looking at, I guess, like a little bit like with a critical eye in a way, but it's like you feel the choreography rather than like, oh shit, like what did he just do to his face? Like stuff like that is exciting. But big action. I mean, I grew up in, the 90s, so like True Lies and like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I remember like me and my cousins or friends, we'd always like when we would play fight, it'd be like you'd pick an action hero. So you could be Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone or Jean-Claude Van Damme or Chuck Norris or Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan. Just anything Jackie Chan. I might go see the new Karate Kid just because Jackie Chan is a living legend. That guy
No,
is.
it's like Karate Kid Legacy or something, isn't it? That does look good. I've
Yeah.
tried to make my kids watch it and they won't. They don't understand. It's like you need to know wax on, wax off. That's like a cultural thing everyone needs to know. But
Yeah.
they won't be having it. So yeah. Thank you so much for time. You've been so generous.
My pleasure.
Really, really appreciate it. So yeah, keep us all updated on all the new shows, and I will try my best to review them for everyone.
Will do. Yeah. What's Kidnapped as Mafia Queen just came out on Playlit, so I'm very excited about that one. And like you mentioned, Big Bad Husband, fun one. I guess I'll tease it. The title when I was working on it was called Objection! Exclamation point. I'm in charge now. That's the
That's good.
courtroom. Lewis. Yeah, I love the mid-title punctuation. It's always it's always great.
Did you get to say objection?
Yeah, I think so. Well, it's fun. So I don't think this really spoils anything. Basically, like I'm defending him at first, and then like the the prosecution shows the video of him like clearly shooting someone, and I just turn to him and I go, "I'm not gonna lie to you, this is bad. I think we should take the plea," you know. And then he's like, "What?" So yeah, I don't know. This is good fun. Lots of good
Yeah,
fun.
that sounds good. It sounds fun. Yeah, just thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen. I appreciate you. Have a great rest of your night over there.